Look, as the world arrives in London for the King's coronation on Saturday, our Prime Minister has touched down too, and almost straight off the plane has given an interview to our Sky News colleague Piers Morgan. Now, you can watch it later at 11 o'clock, but here's a few snippets I thought are worth showing to you, particularly because here at home, he rarely answers questions as straight up and down as he appears to have done in the UK. On the question of an Australian republic, he's had this to say.
Many people think it's inevitable. Hugh Jackman was recently quoted, one of your great national heroes, saying it's inevitable. You voted in the 1999 referendum in favour of a republic and said it's inevitable. Everybody accepts that. But that referendum came back 55% against, 45% saying yes to a republic. My first question, are you going to have another referendum while you're Prime Minister?
My sole priority that I've put forward for constitutional change is to recognise Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in our constitution and to listen to them through a voice, what's called a voice, essentially that they be consulted on matters that affect them. And that's a referendum that will hold between October and December. That's my timetable. I'm not looking beyond that. I think that Australia should have an Australian as our head of state. I don't shy away from that. I haven't changed my views. But my priority is constitutional recognition.
The voice, the voice, the voice, even in London. Now, surely he's got to realise there's more to the job of PM than just the voice, especially given our cost of living crisis. But there's more here, he said, on the Republic.
Notwithstanding that, it would be very odd, wouldn't it, if you were a Prime Minister and you didn't want another referendum? I mean, otherwise, what's been the point of posing it all this time?
Well, look, I think at some stage in the future that will occur.
Would you like it to happen under your tenure?
What I don't want to do is to be a Prime Minister who presides over just constitutional debates. Well, I don't see it as being imminent.
You're being very diplomatic here, Prime Minister. Is that because you're here for a monarchy, which many of your supporters would be like, well, hang on, you've come here to London to watch a king being crowned at the head of an institution that you just don't agree with?
No, but part of the job of being the Australian Prime Minister is to represent all Australians, not just to put forward my own views, which are clearly there, but it is important that the Australian Prime Minister and the Governor-General and all of the governors, and we have some prominent Australians coming along.
Now, on that stoush I brought you last night where Republican activists have been demanding the PM must stay silent on Saturday and not pledge the oath of allegiance to King Charles, Anthony Albanese said this.
They're going to see you on Saturday declaring your oath of allegiance to not just King Charles, but to all his heirs and successors. No. When actually, really what you want to do is get rid of the monarchy. I mean, it is a strange conundrum, right?
No. Our position, the position of the Australian Republican movement isn't about getting rid of the monarchy. That's a decision for the UK. The decision of the ARM is that an Australian should be the Australian head of state. Yeah. And that's what I agree with. I think you would do that, but Australia would, I would hope, continue to be involved in the Commonwealth.
We have an Australian as head of state. It's called the Governor-General, but Piers Morgan pushed him a little more with this.
How are you going to explain that you've decided to remove his image or not have his image on your $5 banknotes, given it's always traditionally been whoever the monarch is? You've decided as a government you're not going to do this. Are you going to cough up to this when you see King Charles?
I'm sure that it won't be raised.
Much ado about nothing? Well, that's not right. This was the government making a unilateral decision to drop the sovereign off the banknote, the one and only banknote that featured the Queen, without any prior discussion with the Australian people. But that's Labor's arrogance anytime the question of a republic is raised. Even where we have voted to reject one, they still want to force it upon us by stealth. Now, Republic aside, the PM was also asked by Piers Morgan about cancel culture, you know, the push by the woke. He was remarkably candid with this response.
Barry Humphries was cancelled by the Melbourne International Comedy Show. They took his name off a top award for him being allegedly transphobic. What did you feel about that?
Well, I wasn't even aware of that, I must say, until recent times. And I think people legitimately can put forward their concerns about someone's comments that were made then. But at the same time, I think that we've got to be able to laugh at ourselves. I think that a lot of humour, you're quite right, that a lot of humour that used to be on, I mean, Faulty Towers, I'm not sure how that would go.
Never make it.
I'm not sure how that would go. But a bit like rewriting some books, it is what it is at the time, and that's the context. And I think that the idea of cancel culture is, in my view, a sad development, because you often can get as well pylons.
Should the Melbourne Comedy...
Far more tolerance.
Should the Melbourne International Comedy Institution, I guess they would call themselves, but should they have cancelled someone like Barry Humphries? Or did it, actually, was that the worst kind of cancel culture? Because now, since he died, they've now said we want to pay homage to him and honour him, which seems to me stinking hypocrisy.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go into the past.
Actions speak louder than words, don't they? I mean, he started off well, but he certainly squibbed it at the end. But on the issue of women, he didn't squib it.
What is a woman, Prime Minister?
An adult female.
How difficult was that to answer?
Not too hard.
That's something that's stumped other leaders right around the world. More in that interview, of course, on China, Taiwan, AUKUS, and a fairly personal introspection from the Prime Minister about the circumstances of his birth. But I guess what struck me the most is that we have to wait until the PM leaves the country before we get the sort of answers to questions routinely asked of him in Canberra, but so rarely actually answered.